Hi, Gooby here. Today, I'd like to talk about war and oil and manufacturing consent. Today, we're standing at the beginning of possibly another war. Another war fought by Americans. Right now, the airspace over Venezuela is closed off, according to the President of the United States. There are a bunch of warships sitting right outside the country of Venezuela, which is not that far from the United States. It's just across the Gulf of Mexico, or Gulf of America is what this administration has renamed that body of water. So what are we doing there? Well, the message that is repeatedly broadcast on the news is that the Americans are there to fight a war on drugs. Drugs that Americans buy and then they sniff into their nose or inject in their veins or take a pill. That's the narrative. That's what is repeatedly drilled into everyone's minds by the media. Oh yeah, for the last 2 months we've been bombing drug boats that we're gonna bring drugs into America. But these boats, these are little tiny boats. The Gulf of Mexico, or Gulf of America, whatever you want to call it, is really big. And Venezuela is on the other side. Those little boats can't make it across to Florida or Louisiana or Texas. There's no way. They can't. But we've been blowing them up without any proof that they were drug boats. And even if they weren't coming to America because the United States, because it's too far. Those boats wouldn't make it. But people say, or the media is saying, nope, the president of Venezuela is a drug runner. He's the head of a cartel. Cartel de Souls or something. The cartel of the suns. Okay, well let's just say that really is what Americans are doing. Well, the president just pardoned one of the ex-presidents of Honduras, who was convicted of bringing in 400 tons of cocaine into the United States. 400 tons is like 800,000 pounds. 800,000 pounds of cocaine. That's a lot. I mean, I don't know how much people buy because I don't do cocaine, but in the movies, it doesn't look like they take very much to get high and like snort it. So 800,000 pounds is a lot. And President Trump pardoned the ex-president of Honduras for bringing in 800,000 tons of cocaine that Americans want to put in their nose. So, is that really why we're going to war? Or potentially going to war? I mean, I guess you could say the war's already started because we've been blowing up Venezuelan boats. Why are we going to war? Well, it's the same thing as the 2000s and the 1990s. It's the same. Well, Same stuff. In the 2000s, it was Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction and we have to stop him because he is an evil tyrant that will destroy the whole world. Not to mention that they have a whole bunch of oil there, and Saddam Hussein threatened to sell oil in different currencies not based on the US dollar. So it would have dethroned the petrodollar. The dollar is sort of the world currency, and at least it has been, and is sort of losing its power, and has been tied to oil, because oil is like the blood that runs this modern civilization everywhere, not just the United States, everywhere. Well, we went into Iraq, and I don't even know if there were any weapons of mass destruction. They kept looking for them. They didn't find any nukes or anything, or nuclear weapons. Or I don't think they found any biological weapons. I'm not sure if they found chemical weapons. But that was the thing. That was the reason for getting all the countries together to kill a whole bunch of Iraqis. And side bonus, which was probably the main objective, you get American oil corporations in there to take the oil. Well, if you look at the oil intelligence that is publicly available, for instance, Rystad Energy published updated information saying that oil output is going to be decreased by half by 2050. That's only 25 years from now, because all the easy to get oil that we found and we've drilled and pumped out of the ground is pretty much getting pumped till those reservoirs are empty. They don't have much left to give. That's why Americans turn to fracking. Fracking gets tight oil that's like stuck in these little crevices and layers between rocks, and we used fracking, which is water breaking through rock, to get at that oil, because we already drained the conventional oil, or most of it. And the amount of oil that we're getting out of conventional fields and now the fracking fields are showing signs of decreasing. And that intelligence from Rystad is global. They're saying that globally this is happening because we have tapped all the easy to tap oil fields. And even the unconventional oil, like fracking, is decreasing in its output. Well, that's a big problem for our civilization, because our civilization runs on energy. Our oil, or the oil that we get out of the ground, are ghost slaves. We've been using them like a whole army of slaves that are ghosts, that are not people. They're the energy from the sun that's been buried underground, for energy of the sun for millions of years, that was incorporated into animal bodies like plankton, dinosaurs, foliage, plants, trees, and they all got buried underground. This is before fungus evolved, because fungi now they decompose the plant matter. So there will be no new oil fields, because fungi decompose the plant matter. This was like a one-time bounty of energy from way long ago, and we found it, and we've drilled, and we've pumped out pretty much all the easy to access oil. Well, you might say, well, Gooby, there's always some oil down there, and it just means we just gotta have better technology. Well, the harder to access oil requires energy to get at it. there comes a point when it takes so much energy to try to pump out the oil in a hard-to-get place that the amount of energy you spent trying to pump it out is the amount of energy that's left in the barrel of oil that you pumped out of the ground. It can't be used for anything else, because if you want any more oil, you got to use that barrel to get another barrel out. That's the return on energy return on investment, EROI. We are getting there. And that's why Rystad was saying that oil output is going to be half within 25 years. Just think about our civilization, all the energy that we do, only half as much can be done in just 25 years. That is what's happening very soon. Well, I think despite Americans, United States government, sometimes, depending on which party you're in, sometimes denying that climate change is happening, that they deny that we go to war over oils. They make up some kind of flimsy excuse to try to convince people to go along with the plan. I mean, this current flimsy excuse is really flimsy. I mean, pardoning the Honduran president, who for sure was bringing tons, hundreds of tons, 400 tons of cocaine into the United States, pardoning him and then making a case to go to war in Venezuela is, I mean, it's just like not even consistent. I mean, they're not even trying to be consistent. But Venezuela has the largest confirmed oil reserves that are left in the world. That's why we're going to war. Now, is that the will of the people? Because the government should be representing the will of the people. What is the will of the people? Do the people want to go to war? Do they want to kill Venezuelans and then take the black gold that's underneath their land? Do we want American soldiers to die? Do we want billions and billions of dollars spent blowing up people that are our neighbors across the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America? Is that what people want? Well, I think most people would say, no, I don't want that. I'd rather spend those billions of dollars having health care in the United States that people can afford. I'd rather have billions of dollars spent to improve our infrastructure that is deteriorating. Bridges, highways, power grid. I'd rather have billions of dollars spent on education, children, childcare, food security. Those are I think much better than spending billions of dollars blowing up Venezuelans and shooting them. But it's not that simple. It's not, because our civilization runs on oil. Americans, United States citizens, benefit from the actions of our government. We benefit from all the oil that we got from destabilizing Iraq and Libya and whatever other countries, Nigeria. I mean, there was a recent thing where they're like, oh, we're gonna have combat operations in Nigeria because they're killing Christians. That's not the reason. Nigeria, I think, has the second largest oil reserves after Venezuela. You know, we already killed Gaddafi in Libya and set up oil companies there. We stole Iraq's oil. We're allies with Saudi oil, but their oil fields are depleting. So it's really trying to find trying to find the last remaining easily accessible oil, and that is Venezuela, and that's why we're going to war, not because of some drug running, because that's not the reason. It's a very, very flimsy excuse. It's hardly convincing. It's not convincing. So the tricky thing is, Americans benefit from this. And then so if we want to continue our quality of life the way it is, we got to steal other people's oil. That's just the bottom line. Renewable energy is not going to cut it. Solar panels, wind farms, hydroelectric power from dams, it's not going to cut it. Fossil fuels are an amazing energy source. They're compact. You can burn it at any time of the day. It doesn't require the sun, like solar panels, or the wind to be constant, like wind farms. We have readily accessible energy, and we just burn it whenever we want, and it's in very compact form. So I think there's a huge incentive for Americans to say, you know what? I just trust my government. You know, they're trying to do a good thing. They're trying to stop drugs from coming into this country and killing Americans, because Americans are so sick physically and mentally that we're resorting to coping with all kinds of different drugs. Fentanyl, methamphetamines, cocaine, hard drugs, and like all these like chemical derivatives of these drugs. Or not to mention alcohol, which is legal. I mean, that kills a ton of people. Weed, I don't think really should be categorized with those other drugs. But that's a different topic. So, yeah, Americans can have an incentive to say, yeah, you know what? That is a good thing. It's a good thing to stop drugs coming into the country, because a lot of Americans are dying. And, you know, it doesn't quite make sense to me because, the Honduran president was just pardoned, and he definitely was a drug dealer bringing drugs in. But, you know, I'm just going to remain willfully ignorant, because if I can just stay willfully ignorant, then I don't have to really know what's going on, and I can have plausible deniability. I don't really understand what that is. That's above my pay grade. I just do what I'm told, and I just try to be a good citizen and do my part as a cog in the giant machine. And you know, it's not my responsibility. All the blood of Venezuelans dying. I just gotta trust what the media is saying. And by doing that, I can enjoy having oil and power and energy and plastic goods and food, because oil is used to make fertilizer, which becomes the food that we eat. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to grow the food that we have, because we would make the soil barren without the fertilizers, because we keep growing the food and taking the nutrients out of the ground and shipping them to cities far away, towns and cities. You got to put nutrients back in the soil, and that with fossil fuels. Or you could have had permaculture, but the scale of food growing that we have and the monocultures that we have, you can't do permaculture. So the American has a really big incentive to remain willfully ignorant, to not know, because if you don't know, well, you can't be held responsible for something bad that's happening to other people. Well, that's where we are. That's where we are. But the and I don't think that's gonna really change. But what I do find interesting about it is that it really shows me that we are coming to the end of this fossil fuel powered civilization. We are really fighting for scraps. We're willing to invade a country over the flimsiest of excuses because we need it, or we think we need it. That really tells me that we're coming to the end. The pie is getting smaller, and there's more people who want to eat the pie. And so Americans are just killing and stealing. Now, I'm from the United States, so I am part of that. Does it have to be that way? Well, if our civilization wants to keep running for another 50 years or so, the way it's been running, yeah, you got to steal the oil. Is that right? I don't think so. I mean, that brings up the question, should we be burning all this oil? There are... Oh, and this is another thing that the government says is a hoax, a fake. But their actions tell me that they know it is real. And we're changing our climate very quickly. We're changing it so quickly that humans within their lifetime can tell that the weather's changing. Or not the weather, the climate is changing. Where we got predictable rain and temperatures that is getting all out of whack. Places are getting warmer. Some places are getting deluges of rain. A deluge of rain, like an atmospheric river is, I think, what meteorologists call it. Other places are getting droughts. Some places are getting both, alternating. You can't grow food in a climate like that without heavy losses of crops. This is happening. It's happening right now. And that's related to our burning of fossil fuels because it releases greenhouse gases, which warms the environment. The government says that's a hoax. It's fake. Only an idiot would believe that. But I know they believe that. The Pentagon believes that. They're trying to figure out what to do with all these naval yards that are going to be underwater. They're trying to secure oil rights, passageways in the Arctic, because there's oil up there that is frozen. I mean, under ice, but it won't be for long. There's talks of invading Greenland and Canada. It's, I think, the same thing. They know what's happening. They know the climate's changing. They know that the earth is warming. And they know that a lot of people are going to die from starvation because we're going to be running out of oil and we've really messed up the environment that is going to be hard to grow enough food to keep 8.2 billion people alive. I think they know. They know. And so it's interesting to me to see them going after oil in Venezuela. It really tells me that times are desperate. They're thinking we got to just get as much oil as we can because there's not much left. And we got to kill and steal whatever we can right now. And we got to even invade our neighbors like Canada and Greenland. Mexico also has oil too. I think they're really trying to create some kind of like fortress, a continental fortress to like survive. All this talk of building walls and kicking out migrants, I think, is in preparation for huge amounts of migrants moving from South America and the equator and around the globe due to crop failures. and climate change. The borders are going to be way more militarized and closed off, I think, as time goes by, and huge waves of billions of people migrating to find food. I think they really know all this stuff, even though they say it's a hoax, and certain followers of those parties believe them, but it's not the truth. Well, that's where we are. I just wanted to share my thoughts about this new war that we might be starting, and that and trying to make sense of it, because that's how I make sense of it. I think this civilization is in deep doo-doo. That's what it is, and we're just trying to get the remaining oil and ignoring the consequences of burning all that oil. That's where we are. If you want to learn more about the effect of greenhouse gases, James Hansen is a very good scientist to read what he writes. He was director of the Goddard Space Institute, studying climate, the atmosphere, and I find his writings very informative. His group figured out and published, I think it was this year or last year, they published a paper that shows that we have underestimated the Earth's climate sensitivity to how much CO2 we burn. The quick points I'm gonna share before the end of this video is that when we burn CO2, it takes 1,000 years for the full warming to take effect, but a third of the warming happens in 10 years, another third happens in 100 years, and then the last third happens between the 100 and 1,000 years. We've been burning a whole bunch of fossil fuels since the start of the Industrial Revolution, and we've turbocharged it in modern times in the 1900s and early 2000s. There is no sign that we're slowing down, despite multiple government pledges to stop. All of these conference of parties, COP, we've had like 30 of them, and they have resulted in no decrease. We've only increased how much we're burning. There was the Paris Climate Accords, the Kyoto Climate Accords. All these climate accords were just people saying that they were going to take care of the earth that we live on, but nothing has been done except for worsening the problem, increasing how much oil we've been burning. And people know. These people, they know what's happening. The scientists that worked for Exxon in the 60s, they knew, and they published about it. And they said, if we burn all this stuff that we're pumping on the ground, we're gonna warm up the earth. People have known for a long time, and there's a lot of money that goes into disinformation to make people think, oh, that's just a bunch of liberal nonsense. That's just a hoax. That's just like Chinese propaganda. It's not. It's real science, and it's what's happening. You just look outside. I think everyone can notice. Yeah, you know what? Things are warming up. It's raining and snowing less here. Or some people, depending on where you live, they say the storms are pretty crazy. It is. It's not. It's not the hoax that people, that politicians push onto their followers. Well, yeah, that got me kind of worked up. What to do about things now? now that, okay, now let's just say you followed me this far, or you are already to this point, and you're like, yeah, Gooby, of course I knew that already. Or you might say, okay, well, I thought it was a hoax, but I'm willing to entertain that maybe it's not a hoax because, yeah, sure, it hasn't snowed yet, and it's like Thanksgiving time. What do we do? Well, I think the first thing to do is to shed the willful ignorance and say, okay, we're going to war in Venezuela over oil. We're burning a ton of oil. The civilization needs it to function the way it is. And the oil's running out, and burning the oil is really messing up our climate. Maybe we shouldn't be burning as much oil. Maybe we should find a way to wean off of this. Maybe we should find a way to live that doesn't require as much energy, because none of the other energy sources are gonna be able to compensate for what we lose when the oil production is decreased. No amount of green energy, renewable energy source will replace what we're gonna lose. So we got a plan. 25 years is not very long. 25 years, the energy is gonna be half from oil. That's not much time to plan. We gotta start planning now. We gotta be thinking about not only our own generation, but future generations. We gotta be thinking about the fact that greenhouse gases burned today have only a third of their effect within 10 years, and then 2/3 of their effect within 100 years. That means that fossil fuels that were burnt 100 years ago are still heating the earth. Even if we stopped today, we'd still see heating for 1,000 years. It's crazy. We got to look at this with clear eyes. We got to shed that willful ignorance. We got to make plans. That's what I've been talking about on this channel, is like trying to understand the willful ignorance, trying to understand the actions and the choices of destroying our home, trying to understand hurting other people for selfish gain, but also trying to understand renewable energy and whether it can replace fossil fuels, and it can. Trying to understand population and ecology and our relation to all the other animals and plants and fungi, our relation to the sun, the beautiful sunset, the ocean. Wow, it's really pretty. Trying to reconnect with this beautiful sunset. Oh my gosh. Well, I'll close this video with a funny story. My wife and Doobie, we were out at Intercoastal Waterway over here, and there was a raven, and it was eating a severed elk leg. I think it was an elk. It was a huge leg, and this raven is huge. Ravens are like much bigger than crows. They're like this big, and it was eating it, and I thought it was eating a salmon. It was eating this long thing, and I thought it was a salmon. It was near the water. And it flew away, and so my wife, Doobie, and I, we went to go look at the fish, but it wasn't a fish. It was just one leg of like an elk that was like torn to shreds, but you could still see like from its ankle down and his hoof, and the raven was eating it. And then we looked around, and the raven had come back and saw us over its food. And then it disappeared. And then we heard this sound like bonk, 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 like that. And it was coming from where we had parked. And I was like, that's such a weird sound. So the three of us, we walked away from the leg, and we went. It sounded like it was coming from my truck, and I looked and there was the raven above the truck, and it went bonk bonk and it flew away. It pooped on my truck, purple poo. And then I saw that it had flown back to the leg and started eating the leg again. Ravens don't typically make that sound. A crow is like caw caw, but a raven is more like caw caw. It's kind of hard to do a raven call. You can look it up, but it doesn't usually make a sound like bonk bonk. It was trying to draw us back to the truck by making like a sound like a vehicle. And it got his friend to help it out, and it lured us away from the lake. I thought that was really cool. Ravens are really smart. They live a long time. And it was making a sound like a car above my truck to draw us away from the lake. That is so cool. That was amazing. And it pooped on my truck. It knew which truck was mine. There was 3 trucks there. It knew which truck was mine. Like that's how cool nature is. It's just awesome. What else? Oh, one last thing. We're running out of light. This place here is in Canada. It's really cold water, and there's really great waves to surf. And I was surfing yesterday. I didn't today, but I probably will tomorrow. This gives me hope, because this was like a decade ago. I was just on YouTube, and I saw the surfing channel talk about surfing in the Arctic waters of Canada. Well, it's not technically Arctic, it's just really cold water. Really, really cold water. And I was thinking, at that time I was just surfing in California where I lived, which is cold too, but this is way colder. And I saw this this YouTube video of guys coming up to here to go surfing. And I was like, those guys are insane. Who wants to surf in water that's like ice cold? They're crazy. And I don't even know where that town is. I don't even know how to get out there, wherever they are. I would never go out there. Man, that's nuts. That was like a decade ago. Well, many years later, about 4 or 5 years ago now, I moved to the Pacific Northwest, and I still have my boogie board and fins, and this year I decided to pick up surfing again. And the waves in Washington are okay, but I remember that video of guys coming up to here, which is drivable. It's a long drive. And I told my wife, I was like, hey, you want to check it out? And she said, sure. And so we came up here earlier in the summer, and we come back. And I've surfed over here in the frigid waters. I never thought I would, but I did. It's amazing. The waves are really good. But the water is so cool. I never thought I would be one of those crazy guys surfing in the frigid waters off the coast of Canada. It's just like something that I didn't think was possible. I thought that was just totally outlandish. But that gives me hope, because what we're facing as humans, as humanity, as in this civilization, we're facing a really daunting future. Very daunting, with huge pitfalls. It's like Scylla and Charybdis, I think that's the name, I might have pronounced it wrong, in the Odyssey, where there's siren songs, and the ship has to sail between the pass, And on either side, there's two monsters, Scylla and Charybdis, and they have a siren song that wants to draw the sailors to either one end or the other. But if you do, your ship will be dashed on the rocks and everyone will die. And they've got to thread the needle and not be drawn to the siren song. I realized after I made this video that I had conflated two different stories from the Odyssey, the Sirens and Scylla and Charybdis. The Sirens are a group of beings that sing an irresistible song that causes humans to follow them into the sea and drown. Scylla and Charybdis are two different sea monsters that live on opposite sides of a narrow strait. Scylla is a six-headed monster, and Charybdis is an undersea monster that swallows the water in a giant whirlpool 3 times a day and belches out the water in between those times. In the Odyssey, Odysseus and his crew have to pass between Scylla and Charybdis, and they choose to err closer to Scylla, knowing that some of the crew will be sacrificed, will be murdered and eaten by the 6 heads of Scylla. They choose this to avoid the whole crew being killed in the whirlpool of Charybdis. It's an example of choosing the lesser of two evils. But I think in the case that I'm talking about, where we are right now, I think the conflation of the two, the Sirens, Scylla and Charybdis, actually makes sense. Now back to the video. That's where we are. I don't know if we're going to make it. I don't know. But this gives me hope. The fact that I never thought I would be out here before, I didn't think it was possible, but I am. And I'm making a video on YouTube, which I never thought I would be doing either. And that's pretty cool too. You know, there's a lot of things that are possible that seem impossible. But yeah, that's I think it's possible. It's going to be very hard, and we definitely can't do it if we remain willfully ignorant. We got to shed that if we're going to make it. Well, we're out of light, and I got to go now. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.